have stopped yesterday. We were discussing structuralism and its origins in the works of Ferdinand de Saussure, and also in the works of anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss and Roland Barthes, etc. So, Saussure has come up with this idea of a sign, signifier, and signified. Actually, for Saussure, this linguistic sign is made up of the union of signifier and the signified. This is how I have shown it in this slide. The sign is all the alphabet that we have in any language. They can be called as signs. And then this sign, according to Saussure, is made up of signifier. The signifier is the sound image, or the psychological image that we will get when we listen to a particular sound. And then actually whatever the image that you are attaching to the original thing. For example, I have taken the word of cat, and then all CAT or sign or signs, and the sound itself is the signifier, and the original cat that you can see is the cat, the signifier. This is what Saussure speaks, and it is called as the linguistic sign. And I have told you yesterday that signs need not be only linguistic. There can be other types of signs also. So what is signifier and what is signified, I have given down here in the slide. If you want, you can write down. And I think someone else is waiting for getting admitted. Let me admit them. So I have admitted. So this is the theory of Saussure. The whole structuralism is based upon this kind of structure. Saussure's idea is that language itself is a structure. So that is why he has started analyzing language in terms of its structure, which is mostly a social phenomena. Okay. Besides this, these are some of the three concepts that Saussure has come up with the theory of language. So based on the relationship between the sign and the signifier and signified, he arrived at these three characteristics, we can call, of the language. Meanings are arbitrary, and if you go to the original dictionary meaning of the arbitrary, you can read here. Lasya, Ramya, any one of you can read. What is the meaning of arbitrary?
Arbitrary.
Yeah, you can read.
Depending on individual discretion
Ah,
as of a judge and
ah.
not fixed by law.
Yeah, stop here. So see there, for example, you take, we took the signs CAT, and we have the sound cat. Okay. Then we are assigning this sound to the animal cat, whichever image that we get when you utter the word cat. So here itself, you can understand that this is the individual discretion, because the animal has nothing to do with the sound that is cat that we are pronouncing. Okay. And if you go to the third meaning that I have given here, based on, you can read, based on
Or determined by
ah,
individual preference
ah,
or convenience
ah,
rather than by necessity or
mm,
the intrinsic nature of
mm.
something.
Something. Yes, when I say that the sound cat has nothing to do with the animal cat, but yet we get the image of that animal when we listen to cat. That means what? This is arbitrarily arranged in the structure of language, because from the childhood, you are trained to learn to attach the sound cat to a particular animal, which the image of which we will get in your minds. అంతే కదా, మీరు ఇప్పుడు నేను పిల్లి అంటే ఎలుకను ఊహించుకోరు కదా. Got my point? So from there only Saussure actually told that meanings are arbitrary. There is no particular rule on which we are attaching the meanings to the some concepts. Say for example, because this is prescribed in our language, and who prescribed it, or is it by any law, etc.? No, there is no law. It is only by individual preference. So we found a crow, we called it a crow, and when I say crow, you will get an image. Okay, in your brain, you will get an image. If I say a tree, you will get some image of the tree. But if I say neem tree, you will get one particular image that is suitable to neem tree. So just like that, language is a structure that is formed arbitrarily, and we are led into this structure from our infancy itself. We have been into that. So that is why he says in language meanings are arbitrary. So the word meaning arbitrary reveals Saussure identifies that there is no connection between the linguistic sign and the image. I hope you understood. అర్థమైందమ్మా అందరికి? చెప్పాలి.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
లింగ్విస్టిక్ సైన్ అంటే క్యాట్ అని ఏదైతే ఉందో ఆ ఇమేజ్, పిల్లి యొక్క ఇమేజ్ ఏదైతే ఉందో, ఈ సైన్ కి ఆ ఇమేజ్ కి ఏం సంబంధం లేదు, బట్ వి అటాచ్ దట్. ఓకే, యు గాట్ మై పాయింట్. అండ్ Saussure observed that only. So based upon this, he says that meanings are arbitrary. There is no reason behind attaching one meaning to a particular sign, etc. So, and the combination of signs also. For example, if you take the word cat, CAT, we should write. If you write ACT, it becomes another word. Or ATC, it is no word at all. It has no sense at all. So we have a certain order in combining the signs, and also we have a certain order in getting the signifiers and attaching them to the signified. So it reveals that there is no reason behind attaching a particular sound to a particular sign and a particular concept to a particular sound also. So that is why actually Saussure has come up with this idea of meanings are arbitrary. And secondly, he said that the meanings are relational. That means in the very beginning of our discussion of structuralism, I stated that we cannot understand things in isolation. Say, for example, you have man, women. To understand who is a woman, you should compare it with man. And to know or to say this is a man, you have to say that this is not a woman. Okay, so to know the meaning of things, we need to compare. In isolation, we cannot do that. We always have to read the things or concepts as part of a whole structure. So language is also structure. So within that language only, some sounds, some signs will have meaning. It is relational. See, to define a palace, you need a hut, or Saussure's chain of words is there, which I did not get here, but the chain is like, it goes like hut, bungalow, palace, house, like that. So to say that what is a bungalow, you may say that it is not a small house, or hut. What is a hut? It is not a house, like that. That chain is there. So he says that meanings are always relational. Relational means what? To have relation with one another. So we cannot define a house or a palace or a hut in isolation, but only in comparison, in relation to the other. So this is another characteristic of language which Saussure establishes. And then he also says that the meanings, of course, are endless, which is called as difference. And one more thing is sounds in a particular language which have some meaning may not have the same meaning or any meaning in another language. So they, likewise, there is no end to this concept of meaning in some other languages. These are briefly the ideas of Saussure on language, and also he has differentiated between langue and parole. Lang and parole, Langue, we write, this is pronounced as lang, and parole. Okay, lang is the individual's language, use of language, and parole is the whole structure of language. Of course, I can give you a brief note on those concepts. Now I will stop sharing this slide. Here it is over. So let me come to the screen. Now I have to discuss, if you have this object of study, that essay which I have made a document and sent it to you. Here, this is actually an essay by Ferdinand de Saussure, the object of study. That is because Saussure is a linguist, a Swiss linguist, and he, as a linguist, wanted to focus what is the subject of study or object of study for linguists. This essay is presents so many ideas regarding what is language and what is that linguists should study, etc. And this essay is written in 3 parts, which you can see there, on defining a language. Okay, and then you have the second part. You can just open this document even in your mobile also. Another is linguistic structure, its place among the facts of language. According to him, language is having so many facts. So linguistic structure, what is its place in among all the facts of language? And then language and languages and their place in human affairs, which is called as semiology. Semiology is a subject that is developed by Ferdinand de Saussure. And so in the first part on defining a language, this is the first part of this object of study, the essay. So if you are having this in your mobile, you can read the first paragraph. Any one of you can read it.
Yes, ma'am. What is it that linguistics sets out to analyze? What is that actual objects of study in its entirety? The question is a particularly difficult one. We shall see why later. First, let us simply try to grasp the nature of the difficulty.
Yeah. See here, the essay begins with questions. Saussure is asking some questions. What is it that linguistics sets out to analyze? He says, of course, if I ask you what is linguistics, what will you say? Because you are familiar with linguistics. Okay, tell me, what will you say? What is your idea of linguistics? Why all of you are silent? What is linguistics? I think Saujanya is here. What is linguistics?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, what is linguistics?
It is about language.
Okay, it's about language only. Naturally, we say that linguistics is the scientific study of language. Okay, but let us see,
Yes,
to
ma'am.
define linguistics in such a way also, how much difficult it is. Okay, so that is why Saussure has begun his essay with a question. What is it that linguistics sets out to analyze? So he is questioning. With questions, he will lead us into answers. What is that actual object of study in its entirety, in its whole? Okay, so wholly, what is the actual object of study for linguists or in linguistics? The question is a particularly difficult one. He himself is stating that to state what linguistics is studying, yeah, and to answer this is a very difficult question. We shall see why later. He's saying that let us see why this question is difficult at a later point of this essay. But now he says, let us simply try to grasp the nature of the difficulty. First, he said that what is the object of study for a linguist or for linguistics? That is what he questioned. And he himself is stating that it is very difficult. And then why it is difficult, we will discuss this later. But first of all, he is saying that let us grasp. Grasp is to understand. He says, what is the grasp the nature of difficulty? Okay, so the nature of difficulty is presented in the second paragraph. Oh, next, you can continue reading.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Other sciences are provided with objects of study given in advance, which are the examined for different point of view. Nothing like that.
See, which are the kadu then. Other sciences are provided with objects of study
Yes, ma'am.
given in advance. Yeah, given in advance. Given in advance means, you say, for example, if you say geology, what is studied as part of geology? Earth. Okay, Earth is studied. If it is zoology, what is studied there regarding animals? If you say botany, you have plants, etc. So he says that if you take other sciences like botany, zoology, geology, all other sciences, physics, chemistry, whatever it is, he is saying that they are having their objects of study in advance. So because zoology people will study animals, botany people will study plants, geology people will study earth, chemistry people will be studying about chemicals. All these sciences are having their objects. The object of study for a zoologist is animal. The object of study for a botany people are plants. So like this, if you take other sciences, he is saying that all others are having their objects of study prescribed well in advance. They know what they are going to study, which are then examined. So they know what objects they are studying. So they will be examining those objects from different points of view. From different points of view, they'll be studying these objects of study. Then
Nothing like that is the case in linguistics.
yeah. So why the difficulty for a linguist or in linguistics? The object of study is not prescribed in advance or not given in advance. That is why he says nothing like that is the case in linguistics. In linguistics, that is not the case. Okay, next.
Suppose someone pronounces the French word no. At first sight, one might think this would be an example of an independently given linguistics object. But more careful consideration reveals a series of 3 or 4 quite different things, depending on the viewpoint adopted.
Yeah, now he is giving one French example. Okay, one French word no, that means naked. Okay, the word means naked, and if a linguist is approaching this word, one might think this would be an example of an independently given linguistic object. First, it appears that it is the object of study. The no is the object of study, the word or the phrase, whatever study. But more careful consideration reveals a series of 3 or 4 quite different things. But this word, if you approach this word, he is saying that it is not only a linguistic object, but it will present three or more different things. Okay, how it will present those things depending on the viewpoint adopted. So whatever viewpoint is adopted, depending on that, Saussure says that it will be presenting three or more points of a study. Okay, what are they?
There is a sound.
Yeah,
There
no is a sound. Okay, no, we are uttering no. So firstly there is a sound. Okay, then
there is the expression of an idea.
yeah, it is not only a sound, it is also an expression of idea of being naked. Okay, so there is the idea. Okay, then
There is a derivative of Latin medium.
mm,
And so on.
derivative and so on. So if you take it a sound, it is only a sound, but that sound is attached with an expression. Okay, the expression of being naked. Okay, or the idea of naked. And then if you go into etymology, it is the derivative of Latin nudum. Okay, the nu word is the derivative of Latin nudum, and so on. So first of all, when the word no, that is naked, is given, immediately when we look at that, we will think that this is simply a word. But if we go further into that, we got say two or more points of view. So it is not only a sound, it is an expression, and also it is a derivative. That means etymology comes here. So here we have 3 points of view. Okay, at least minimum 3 points of view. So one single or simple sound like no is giving us 3 points of view here. Okay, next.
The object is not given in advance of the viewpoint.
Mm,
Far from it,
mm,
rather, one
mm,
might say
mm,
that, that, that it is the viewpoint adopted which creates the object.
mm,
Furthermore, there
mm,
is nothing to tell us in advance whether
mm,
one of this way of looking at it is
mm,
prior to
mm.
or superior to any of the others.
Yeah, now we have seen that simply there are 3 points of view to study the single object. Then the object is not given in advance of the viewpoint, far from it. So when the word, the object no is given, of course, these viewpoints are not considered at all. They are not given in advance as it is the case with other sciences. Okay. Rather, one might say that it is the viewpoint adapted which creates the object. Okay. This sound is always there new, and to look at that sound, of course, um, the viewpoint comes first. Of course, if you look at that sound with a particular viewpoint, you may get another meanings. So some people may say that the object is not the question here, but the viewpoint is the question. The object is not the question. Furthermore, there is nothing to tell us in advance whether one of these ways of looking at it is prior to or superior to any of the others. And one more thing is, which comes first? How to look at this word no as an idea or as an expression or as a derivative. So, which is first and which is superior or which is inferior? Can we decide like this? See how problematic it is to decide the object of study for linguistics. Okay, with taking this word no, of course, he's taking, he's presenting how we will be in difficulty to arrive at the object of study, because whether the object of study has to be approached in a particular point of view or not, and that particular point of view, whether it is what do you say, superior or inferior, whether it is the priority or not, like that we have many questions. So unlike the other sciences, linguistics is not having the object of study in a simple manner. It's very difficult. Okay. Then
Whichever viewpoint is adopted, whatever linguistic phenomena always present two complementary facts, each depending on the other. For example,
yeah, wait. So he is now presenting one thing. Then whatever viewpoint that is mentioned above, we adopt. He says linguistic phenomena always presents two complementary facets. Complementary means what? One goes with the other. Okay. So linguistics always presents two complementary facets, two points of view. They are presented here. What is that? First one, I will read it.
Okay.
The ear perceives articulated syllables as auditory impressions. Actually, this is the process of listening to sounds, okay, which often we don't care to think of. Okay, actually, when a sound is uttered, what happens? The ear perceives articulated syllables. Articulated means what? You sound, you pronounce it. Okay, syllables as auditory impressions. What are they? When the syllables are uttered, they are auditory impressions, audible, which we can hear. Okay, but the sounds in question would not exist without the vocal organs. But how can you produce sound? Is it can you produce sounds without vocal organs? Vocal organs means what? Those organs that help you to produce sounds. Okay, first the sound comes and we perceive it through ear, our ear, which is auditory function. Okay, but how the sound comes, and is it possible without vocal organs? He says no. As we all know, if we are not able to talk or make the sound, how the ear will hear it? Okay, there would be no n, for instance, without these two complementary aspects to it. So what are the two complementary aspects in linguistics? One is auditory and the other is the vocal organs. Of course, the sound comes, we will listen, but how the sound comes? Unless your vocal organs function properly, the sound will not be uttered or coming out. So these are two complementary. Only when the vocal organs are able to produce the sound, we are able to hear it. Okay, there would be, so he says that these are the two complementary facets. So one cannot equate the language simply with what the ear hears. So, of course, linguistics, when you say it is the scientific study of language, but is studying vocal organs a part of linguistics or not? That is a debate. Now he says that one cannot equate the language simply with what the ear hears. So language is not what we are hearing. Before we can hear, some process is taking place before that. One cannot diverse what is heard from oral articulation. So oral articulation is this, our uttering the sound. So how can we differentiate our hearing from the articulation? Okay. Nor one, on the other hand, can one specify the relevant movements of the vocal organs without reference to the corresponding auditory impression. And vice versa is also true, because unless you look at the vocal organs and you perceive the sound, you cannot get the auditory impressions if the proper sounds are produced or not. So, in this way, he says that in linguistics, in uttering a particular word, it is not simply what you say enough if the vocal organs produce it and you can't hear it, and you hear it and if you can't notice the vocal organs, so both should go together. Okay, they are complementary. This is how Saussure says that in linguistics there is complementary facets which are going on always. Okay, but another second point also he is telling, but even if we ignored this phonetic duality, okay, let us not consider about hearing and then uttering. Would language then be reducible to phonetic facts? So, even if we ignore this, Saussure is questioning, can we just say that language is only a phonetic fact? He says no, language is not only phonetic fact. Speech sounds are only the instrument of thought. How will you produce a sound unless you think of that? You can't produce it. And have no independent existence without thinking. That means what? Psychological process. Okay. So without your psychological process, thinking, you can't utter sounds. Okay. Here another complementary emerges and one of great importance. So here, of course, thought process comes into play. A sound itself, a complex auditory articulatory unit, in turn combines with an idea to form another complex unit, both physiologically and psychologically. Nor is this all. Now, just uttering a sound is not the work of vocal organs. That means physiological. Okay. It is also psychological. And further, Saussure is saying that this is not all. So, uttering a sound is not only a linguistic act, it is not the physiological act, it is not only a psychological act, but something else is also there. What is that? Language has an individual aspect and a social aspect. So, that is the social aspect. As I told you, Saussure's structuralism considers language as a structure, and it has an individual aspect and also a social aspect. One is not conceivable without the other. So, if the individual, doesn't want to be in a society and learn the language, it may not happen. Okay, so language at the same time is individual and social. That is what I told you, the words like lang and parole. Okay, lang is the language of the individual and parole is the language as a system, as a whole. Okay, so he says that language, see how many aspects are included in linguistics. That is what he is trying to convey. Physiological, psychological, individual, social, and he says that we can't conceive one without another. Individual is a part of society, and society, of course, is made up of individuals. Okay, so they are also complementary. And then language at any given time involves an established system and an evolution. So language is, we never think of it, but language is an established system and it has been evolving. At a given time, it is an institution in the present and a product of the past. So he says language evolved and now it is an institution and it is the product of the past. It has been evolving for years. At first sight, it looks very easy to distinguish between the system and its history, between what it is and what it was in reality. So Sashur says that when you see at first sight, you think that you can easily say what it was and what it is now, etc. But in reality, the connection between the two is so close that it is hard to separate them. We can't separate both of them. Would matters be simplified if one considered the ontogenesis of linguistic phenomena, beginning with the study of children's language, for example? He is questioning. Can you just find out the origins of language, studying how children acquired language? We can't. Okay, that is why you have many theories of language origin. Okay, some of you can say what theories you know about language origin. You might have read some theories.
Divine origin theory, ma'am.
Divine origin theory, and then
Bao theory.
Bao theory, Foo theory, Ding Dong theory.
Yes.
Yeah, anomatopic theory, like that. Okay.
Skinner's theory of
Yeah, all those. But can anyone give you a final answer for the origin of language? Did you
No,
find
ma'am.
a final answer for the origin of language in any of the theories? Say yes or no?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, it won't. It is they are all speculations only, and that is why he is projecting one more question. Even if you are trying to focus the ontogenesis of linguistic phenomena, you know, the how ontogenesis is how language is born, etc. So can we study the theory of language origin based on based on how the child acquires language? No, simply as you have many theories of language origin, but no theory will provide you a final answer for the language origin. And in a similar manner, even if we start studying the language acquisition by the child also, we may not be able to arrive at the origin of a language. And no, so Sashur also says no. It is quite illusory to believe that where language is concerned, the problem of origins is any different from the problem of permanent conditions. There is no way out of this circle. Actually, Sashur feels that we need not work out about the origins of language, which is like the diachronic linguistics. You might be aware of the diachronic linguistics, which studies the theory of origin of language. But Sashur feels that it is no use of studying the theories of origin of language, because as we all know, we won't be arriving at any final answer. So because of all the complexity involved in the object of study for linguistics, and also the futility in going after the origin theories of language, etc. Sashur says that let us shift from diachronic to synchronic linguistics, that is to study language at this moment, and of course how it is evolving. So now in this few paragraphs that we have studied in this essay, the study, Sashur is trying to point out how the object of study for linguistics is not, to define the object of study for linguistics is not a simple job, because language acquisition and using the language for our communication, our simple utterance, etc., is a complex process that involves many facets like physiological, psychological, and then what now I told you, social, because language is a social process. Because if you leave kids actually in a forest, they may not be able to pick up language. We have one story like Kamala Vimala in anthropology. It's believed that these Kamala Vimala are twins, and one day wolves came to the village, and they have taken away these babies into forest. This is studied in anthropology, because anthropology is the study of man. Okay, these Kamala Vimala were taken to forest, and they were just bringing up those children. They didn't kill them. They was bringing up, but after few years, they were just walking with 4 legs instead of using the hands like a human kid. They're walking and eating whatever those wolves eat, and also making sounds like wolves. In the deep forest, after a few years, people found these kids and felt that these are human kids which wolves have brought. They brought them back to the village, but they could not survive, because they don't know how to talk with humans, and they can't eat what humans are eating, and they did not survive. Poor kids have died, and we don't know whether if left in the forest they might have survived or not. But once they are brought into the human civilization, they were dead. Then now this shows that actually, because we are in a society, we are learning language. If we are not in a society, we can't learn the language. And this is why it is believed that children, if they go to different nations at the younger age itself, they will pick up many languages, because when they are children, their linguistic abilities are more than at the later age, because our thinking, our articulating systems, etc., will be getting accustomed to the language, to our mother tongue, as we grow older. Okay. So this is how Shashur is presenting all the difficulties, okay, or many facets that are involved in the study of linguistics. We'll continue this in tomorrow's class. Okay, now we'll leave the class. Okay, see you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you,
bye.
ma'am.
Bye.